But then one day, our lives changed completely, for a while anyway. Our dad had won £800 on the football pools in the late 1960s, and that was a lot of money then. We kids were really happy because we finally got noticed, and people who ignored us before now suddenly wanted to be our friends and have conversations. We got real beds, fancy bed covers, and real white sheets, and for a while, we even had proper food. I can still remember how us kids spent hours jumping around, talking all hoity-toity and sticking our baby fingers up, acting like we were all posh too. But unfortunately, our excitement didn't last, and it wasn't long before destitution and poverty came knocking on the door again. Everyone who had suddenly become our best friend defriended us just as suddenly and stopped talking to us. And in all honesty, it was probably our mother and her shortcomings that did most of the damage to reverse our good fortune, not least because she had no idea how to organise anything, let alone run a family home. And I couldn't tell you at all how our mother even ran family life, or whether my father got involved or not, but I do know that she got into big trouble the day we came home from school and found that she had sold all the beds, the bedding and the pillows to the family across the street. We were made to have their old and grotty cast-off beds, and our dad was furious. In one of his typical outbursts, he grabbed my mother by the hair and, swearing in her face, shoved her hard against the wall in the kitchen. I'd watched, rooted on the spot for what seemed like forever. But then before I knew what I was doing, I'd ran into the kitchen and began kicking him in the leg, yelling for him to stop. I don't know what had driven me to do that, but it wasn't smart, because he'd immediately turned on me, smacked me across the head so hard that my ears had popped, and I went flying across the room. And don't ask me how, but I got back up. I clenched my tiny hands into little balls, stood stock still and glared at him. I felt nothing but hatred for him. Still cursing, he stormed off out of the kitchen, whacking plates off the table as he passed it, and stomped up the stairs to his room. I remained completely motionless until my mother finally shouted at me to stop effing standing there and gawking at her. Feeling more than a little hostile, I'd scowled back at her too, and with gritted teeth turned and walked away. Going to the lounge, I noticed my little sister hiding behind the couch like she always did with her hands over her ears. I stopped and said, "It's okay now, Shirley. Good job hiding." And I sat down and put my arm around her. And for a little while, neither of us moved an inch. I never understood why our dad was so angry all the time. That was a small excerpt from my book, Making Broken Beautiful. And I want to know, have you ever been abused or hurt like that? Have you ever been left feeling so lost and broken and betrayed by the very people who are supposed to love and care for you? This is Morning Mindset, and this week our series is on Making Broken Beautiful, so you can live your life by your design rather than existing by default from other people's wounded behavior. And this series is about living intentionally, and the topic is abuse and what you can do with it today. So I've just shared a small part of my story of physical abuse from my father, and you can struggle with all sorts of different abuses, but abuse can be psychological, it can be verbal and emotional, and it's not always as obvious as what I've just shared. You know, it can be signs of people manipulating you and blaming and controlling and humiliating. And there's the new thing that's always been around, but it's called gaslighting. You know, and isolation is huge, where they abuse or exclude you from everybody, so that you have no support from your family and friends. And there's tons of tons of ways that people can be abusing you. So I want you to listen and join me this week if you are being abused or think you might be in any kind of way and you're suffering. Because if life has dealt you those tough cards and you've been through a lot of pain and suffering, and you may think that you can't take anymore, right? But I want you to know that you're way more powerful than you've ever imagined. And it's sorry, I got distracted. You're way more powerful than you've ever imagined. And you can, I think that the universe only ever throws at us what we can handle. And despite all the challenges that you've faced and you've persevered, you're here now. If you're listening to me and you're watching me, you've still found a way to move forward somehow. And I want you to know you're not your past. You're so much greater than your pain. And I know because I've been there, obviously. And no matter what life's thrown your way, you can choose to overcome it with resilience and determination. I want you to know that anything's possible. And at the end of the day, you're going to struggle anyway. You're going to struggle to deal with the impact of that pain and that abuse and the effect that it's having on your life and what it's making you think and feel. Or you can struggle with trying to grow through it and do whatever it takes to transcend it. Now, I know what I chose, but I want you to choose what's better for you. It's like, do you need to keep struggling and going through that and feeling like you're nothing and being nothing? Or are you going to suffer anyway and go through and do whatever it takes to get past that? Right? Because we all experience pain in our lives all the time, okay? Life happens for us, not to us, but it doesn't have to define us. And you can reset your life as many times as you need to and feel more empowered with the knowledge that you're capable of overcoming everything in your life that you want. Everything in your life, everything that life throws at you, is like, bring it, right? Because what happened to you didn't just happen overnight. So I want you to take a moment today or tomorrow for self-reflection about how strong and brave we really are and how tough we can be when things get really bad. And I have a client who I met, I think it's probably about 12 years ago now, and I can share with you her story because she's given me a video testimonial. And she didn't want to be here anymore, and she had all the means to end her life. And I got her to come and see me, and she was at the lowest part, and she was going home that day. And long story short, she's still here, and she thanks me every single day for doing the work with her, for helping her see that everything that happened to her wasn't her fault. It wasn't. She didn't ask for that. Okay, she wasn't born that way. She was born into people that were wounded, and it was their behavior because they were probably wounded, and the people who wounded them were probably wounded. So how far back do you go that? And it's a cycle. And I think tomorrow I'm going to talk about abandonment because I was abandoned, and I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it allowed me to see something a whole lot different. But I'll share that with you tomorrow. But my client that didn't want to be here, she stood up at my book launch and talked about it. And then her son gave me a message on a piece of paper saying, "Thank you for saving my mum." It still hurts. It still gets to me because people suffer. You suffered so needlessly, and it's really not necessary. It doesn't have to be that way. You can just choose to fight what's going on, fight how they treated you, fight what they made you feel like, because that's their stuff, right? And they're putting it all on you. Okay, and I hope this reminds you of what's possible when you dig deep and find the courage to start. Okay, so I've got some tips anyway to help you reset, and because whatever happened in the past isn't going to determine who or what of type of person you can come next if you decide that. Okay, pain is only temporary. Okay, it's horrible, but it's only temporary. And I want you to decide to use this as motivation for change now instead of letting it defeat you. Because like I said already, it's going to be a struggle and a challenge anyway. So why not make that effort for something that you actually want, right? And with the right strategies, you can create a healthier and stronger mindset, and you can reset your life so you can feel more empowered and you can thrive and succeed instead. So I've got 5 tips that are going to get you started. So I want you to allow yourself to grieve is the first tip, okay? Pain is a natural response to loss and hurt. And it's important to allow yourself to feel all of those emotions that come with that pain rather than ignore them and bottle them up, because this only makes everything worse in the long run. And do it with a therapist. If you find that's too much of a challenge on your own, do it with a therapist or get some help. Okay. And the second tip is to don't dwell on the past. Once you've taken the time to grieve, and it is really, honestly, it's important to do that, because if you're pushing that down, you can't move on until you bring it up and review it and go, what of this is actually relevant to me in my life right now? What am I learning from that? What can I take from that? And who am I? I know that I am so motivated, so strong, and so determined because of what happened to me. And I know that you can be too. But just dwelling on the hurt and the pain is only going to make it harder for you to heal. So I want you to focus on the present, what you have right now, and what you can do and what you need to make things better for yourself. And the third tip I have is to use that pain as motivation, right? Instead of letting your hurt hold you back, use it as motivation to push yourself forward. And remember, you're so much more capable of overcoming anything that life throws your way. And my fourth tip is to seek support from others. You shouldn't have to deal with that pain alone. Okay, there are as many people out there I know would care about you, and they'll help you through those tough times. And if you're going through it right now, or when you did go through that, because I can promise you that's impacting you on an unconscious level, whether you realize it or not. It's stopping you from being who you want to be, having what you want, and feeling really good about yourself. So that behavior, that stuff is in there destroying you anyway, whether you choose to turn around and look at it and acknowledge it or not. Okay. And the last tip I've got is to find something positive in the situation, because even in the darkest times, it's important to find something positive to focus on, right? I mean, whether it's a new hobby or to spend time with loved ones, okay? Find the silver lining, as they say, and help yourself heal from the pain. And I always remind myself that if I live a life less than what I really want, then they're still winning and they're still controlling my life. And there was no way I was ever going to let that happen to me. So I want to remind you that pain is natural and it's a necessary part of life. Adversity is how we grow, all right? However, it doesn't have to define us. With the right strategies, you can cope with that pain in a healthy way and you can come out stronger. And I'm not, this is not a book thing, it's a real life thing because I've done it myself. And I'm going to share with you a poem about that, just to show you exactly how I've grown up and where I've come from and what you can do too when you decide, like, stuff that. I was going to say something else then. All right. But the tips above I've given you are going to help you reset your life and make that pain work for you, because I want you to feel more empowered and to succeed and thrive. So I want to find where I put my poem, and I would like to read it to you with your permission. There is a worksheet that goes today, and it's going to get you questioning and thinking. And I want to know how you've turned your pain into your biggest asset. So here's my poem. When I was just a little girl, I rarely got to eat. My clothes were torn and dirty, and my shoes didn't fit my feet. We lived in poverty and debt, with times of absent lighting, and cold baths meant shaking cold and wet to the background noise of fighting. My father was such an angry man that mother tiptoed round in fear, and we kids dared not to rock the boat. We just held our breath when he was near. My mother was just a simple thing, and no schooling had left her dents, and she chain smoked like a chimney sweep and swore so much you could easily take offence. And there were many times of hiding too, behind the sofa, flat to floor, from aggressive men called collectors who thunderbanged the door. I found everything confusing. It made no sense at all, from the language they were using to the endless drama school. I tried hard to be a good kid. I practiced manners and I studied hard, and I loved the sharing of my learning, but found it tossed out in the yard. So I became a people pleaser and cooked and cleaned aged 8. But that didn't work well either. He'd chuck the food and smash the plate. See, Father had this temper and terrifying rages, and he'd shout and punch doors and break our things, and sensed his blow-ups ran in stages. And our mother often copped it first with a fairly hefty smacking, and we'd hide away, try not to hear her cries and yells, nerve-wracking. It wasn't safe to say a word, just tolerate, accept, abide. Give no show of your emotions, you keep those feelings locked inside. But nothing lasts forever, so mother left and ran away, and she took my little sister with her, but where she went, she didn't say. Then it was only 6 months later when my father too abandoned ship, and he took my little brother with him while I was on a big road trip. So then I came home to find a completely empty house, and everything I owned was gone, a vacuum that was quiet as a mouse. Neither parent had wanted me, and at only 15 years of age, I couldn't work out what I'd done, their moods I couldn't gauge. Feeling lost and lonely, fearful, sad, thinking, boy, I must be really bad. So what to do? Now where can I go? Think, can't think, okay, I know. Mother always liked this song, walk tall and look the world right in the eye. Well, that day I grew, and I did just that. And I didn't stop to cry. Now that was 40 years ago, and I've done such a lot since then. I've worked hard and I've raised a family, and I began my life again. And the bottom of that poem is, I've created a quote. This is another book I've written. And it says, remember, you're always stronger than you think. And I hope this gives you some courage to want to look at your stuff, to stop letting it drive you, to stop letting other people decide who you're going to be and what your life's going to be like and how you're going to live your life, because you're worth it. You're worth so much more. And tomorrow we're going to be addressing the issue and the impact of abandonment. And again, as always, I want to thank you for being here. I truly appreciate you, and I'm grateful for your time. And I hope you found this helpful and motivating. And I would love you to leave some feedback if you in the group and give me some questions. If you have anything you would like to ask me, I'm happy to answer them. You know where to find me. And if you want to help others, you can do that by sharing these mini trainings with those you know benefit. And if you want to keep up to date, of course, the latest trainings, be sure to join my online community and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So my greatest wish for you, as always, is to be Mindfit, so you can live your best life and live it with passion. reset, be authentic, and be you. Thanks again. I would love it. And here's some comments. I was just looking over to see if there are some comments, and I'd love to invite you to drop a comment in the box and share where you're coming from. Good morning, Mark Sullivan. Good morning, High Tech Mother says, it's so nice to have you back. I missed waking up with you. Thank you. I missed being here too, High Tech Mother. Thank you. And she's joining from YouTube. Awesome. And High Tech Mother also says, pain, we are more than our pain. I love your book a lot. Thank you. I loved writing it. Yes, poem. Yes, please. And Parker says, oh, that poem is heartbreaking, touching and deep. Thank you, Parker, joining from LinkedIn. Thank you. Yeah, I used to get past a lot of my pain by writing poetry. And Sebastian, joining from YouTube, says, I wish I could only tell you in words how much I relate to that. High Tech Mother says, well, I have read this. This is from your book from YouTube. Yes, it is. It's I think it's on page 23. Mark Sullivan said, that's a great poem, joining us from Facebook. Good morning, Mark. And from A Tripod, that poem made me cry. Thank you. Thanks for joining us from YouTube. Thank you. High Tech Mother says, I know the feeling of being nothing. It still comes back to haunt me. On my wedding day, my husband and I decided we were never going back there again. You know, you can let other people's wounded behavior destroy you and define who you are, or you can say, that is not going to be my world. And I'm going to share how I made that decision and how my world has been since. And Mark Sullivan says, my ex was great at isolating me from everyone I knew. That's what they do, Mark. They do that because it stops you having any support and you have to rely totally on them. And Parker says, you're making me emotional. I was only 14 to 15 when abuse drove me towards drugs. But you're not there anymore, Parker. I know your story too. And you've transcended that and you're helping others too. High Tech Mother, I know the feeling of being nothing. It still comes back to haunt me on my wedding day. Yep. I decided we would never go back there again. Yes. And Parker says, yeah, I was not wanting to be here. I was found in a ditch by some good Samaritan. Who knows what might happen to be, who now happens to be one of my closest person in my life. I know. And that's how my client feels too. Yeah. Thank you. And I think that's it. We're cycling back to the same comments now. So thank you for all of those comments. Thank you for sharing. I'm looking forward to sharing this week with you and teaching you some ways how you can transcend your adversity and pain and just stop living other people's rubbish. Stop living their wounded behavior. It's not what you came here to do. And my heart to yours. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.